That's it. Hello again, Dominic Trophy, and welcome to another video. And this is part 3 of my of my Nintendo Virtual Console Thoughts and Opinions series. This time will be about the 3DS Virtual Console. Now, obviously, this is the 3DS XL. But an interesting, service for the 3DS to have a Virtual Console. Now, this was obviously the the second Nintendo console to have the Virtual Console's support. The first was the Wii in 2006, and then the second one was the 3DS Virtual Console, which is pretty cool. Now, at first, unlike the Wii, the 3DS didn't launch with a Virtual Console. It did get it, a few months afterwards, around August, September 2011. And the games that it had first were Game Boy Color, original Game Boy, and then later on Game Boy Color. And I think honestly the support was pretty good at first with the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, and there was obviously more support down the line. Now, obviously, I'll start off with the support. Now, first, I'll start off with the support for it. Now, first of all, it had Game Boy games, which was pretty cool, and pretty amazing to see the Game Boy return on Nintendo's newest handheld, the 3DS. And the thing I loved about it was the emulation was really, really great, really, really spot on. Obviously, it was easy to emulate, but it was great to play Game Boy games on something newer than a Game Boy Advance, or even a Game Boy Color, for example, which was pretty cool, good. And that was the thing I loved about it. It was great to basically have that much support for the 3DS, which is pretty cool. One thing that was nice over time was we did get other support, Game Gear emulation of Virtual Console. Now, the Game Gear support, I'm just going to put this down anyway, the Game Gear Virtual Console on the 3DS is, to me, my opinion, one of the best things that was ever put into it. Now, I always thought that it was just going to be Nintendo support, but Sega did put a lot of support in it with the Game Gear Virtual Console. And unfortunately, after a year, because they started in 2012, and then by the mid-2013, they basically dropped support, which is really unfortunate. And the reason being due to the fact that the Virtual Console, the Game Gear games on 3DS were not as selling as others. And it's such a shame because, to me, in my opinion, the Virtual Console for Game Gear on 3DS is absolutely amazing. One of the best things I loved about the Game Gear games on the 3DS. But one thing that was amazing that Japan got, and it's such unfortunate that we never got it. In Japan, they got PC Engine / TurboGrafx Virtual Console support on the 3DS. I remember reading that a few years ago, and I thought that was really, really unfortunate that they were not getting released in America or Europe, because there were lots of people who would love to have seen TurboGrafx VC support on the 3DS. We saw it on the Wii. Why not the 3DS? Obviously it was in Japan, but why not do it, in America and Europe? And, to this day, we still hope for it, even though, again, end of 2016, well, December 2016, almost January 2017, I'd love to see more support with that, I think if it ever does happen. And, that was the thing, but also, we had the Sega 3D Classics. Now, these aren't really termed as Virtual Console, but I kind of count them out like that. And what they were basically Sega, games from the Master System, the arcade, and the Mega Drive, remade into 3D for the 3DS. And to me, I loved that, those games on it. All the Mega Drive games re-released on the 3DS in 3D. And I think that was one of the things I loved about it. Same with the certain Master System games and the arcade games. They also released a collection of the 8 or 9 games on it, which I do own, and it's a great collection of these old games. To me, I think it definitely makes it a modern day Sega Nomad, because I think to be able to play those Mega Drive games on it is absolutely amazing. Just absolutely amazing to see so much great Sega support, you know, on the service. I think it would have been amazing to see more. Now, my opinions of the Virtual Console and 3DS was, I didn't try it out first when it came out in 2011, but I did get this exact 3DS XL for Christmas back in 2012, and I played a lot of great games on it. I had a lot of, obviously, the game card games for it, and I purchased a lot of Virtual Console stuff. And I was blown away to see how much great stuff that was on the handheld. You know, I think it really, really blew a lot of people away. And I think for a handheld, there was a lot of great support on it that really made a lot of people think, wow, I need a 3DS, you know, for those games. Even if you could buy those games, you know, physically for, you know, Game Boy Color, or Game Gear, it was still a great alternative to have all of that content on it. It kind of gave the 3DS a larger backwards compatibility list on it, because obviously it played 3DS games, but it could also but it could also play DS games and certain DSi games, and you were also able to purchase Game Boy Color and Game Gear, giving it that, you know, sort of backwards compatibility slash additional emulation, you know, games on there, which I think is absolutely amazing, and that was one of the things I loved about it. So I've always thanked Nintendo and Sega for giving so much great support on this handheld. And over time, I started purchasing a lot of games. I did get into the Game Gear, and that was actually my first full sense of playing the Game Gear games. Because I'd never owned a Sega Game Gear until 2 years ago. But it was great. It was a great alternative for Game Gear games, kind of making it basically a modern day Game Gear. You know, if you didn't have a Game Gear and you want to try the games out, you know, it was a great alternative for people, and that's one thing I've always loved about it. I think one problem with it is with the support is, over time, it has kind of dwindled over time, which is a shame. Kind of basically gone downhill. Started off really, really well, and then over time kind of gone down. And I think that's a shame with that, because the thing is, there is so much great stuff on it that deserves a re-release on the 3DS VC. And it's such a shame. It really, really is. But one thing that was interesting was, when the 3DS came out after a few months, when it was flopping, when it was failing hard, Nintendo offered a service called the Ambassador Program. And what the Ambassador Program was, it was basically a service allowing early adopters or people who bought the 3DS back in 2011, around that time, and basically gave them, if they registered, you know, in the program, they would get 20 games for free. 10 of them were NES and 10 of them were Game Boy Advance. And unfortunately, there was never ever any sort of Game Boy Advance Virtual Console for the 3DS, which is really, really disappointing. The thing is, the 3DS is powerful to run it, but unfortunately Nintendo never ever got around it. And the reason being how they get those GBA games to work on the 3DS was they did it via the DS mode. Now the DS actually had parts of the Game Boy Advance hardware which caused it to be backwards compatible. And when they ran the Game Boy Advance games on the 3DS, they used that format to do it, to run the games on it. So instead of actually running it on the 3DS, on the 3DS mode, they ran those GBA games through the DS mode, and that's how it happened. And unfortunately, that never came to be, and it's such a shame, because I'd love to play Game Boy Advance games on something modern. It'd be great to play them on a 3DS. Because if Nintendo did that, that would make it the ultimate Nintendo handheld, because you'd have 3DS games, DS games, Game Boy Advance VC, Game Boy Color VC, and original Game Boy VC. You'd have all of that great content on it. and unfortunately we never ever got it, and it's such a shame. It really, really is. But I think if you are interested in the Virtual Console on the 3DS, definitely get one. It's definitely well worth getting some of these games if you have a 3DS. And I quite like that. I think that's a good alternative. Now, unfortunately, the Virtual Console did kind of go down and see an end for the 3DS back in February 2016, which was the last releases of Virtual Console stuff on the 3DS. And they were the original 3 Pokemon games, you know, Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow. And since then, we've not seen any new stuff on it. I'd love to see more stuff, but I think for the future of the 3DS Virtual Console, there isn't really much on it. And I think that's a shame. But I think even if we do not get any more Virtual Console stuff on the 3DS, it's definitely worth checking some of these, you know, games out. I think if you want to try out the Game Gear, some of the Game Boy Color stuff, it's definitely worth having a look on them. It's definitely well worth owning, because I know a lot of people have loved it, and you know, that's the thing. But one thing I will end on it is in 2015, last year, we got no games. We got no games released on the 3DS Virtual Console, which was very, very upsetting. So before the re-release of the Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow, we basically had to wait almost a year and a half to get any sort of support on there. And I think that's one of the disappointing things about the Virtual Console, because over time, Nintendo's kind of lost interest of it, even though, again, companies want to bring stuff on it. And it's such a shame, because there's so much great stuff. I think especially Shantae, from Game Boy Color, which I did purchase a few months ago. Absolute amazing game, because there's a lot of great games on there that are really, really expensive to get physically. So to buy them digitally on the 3DS makes it well worth package if you want to purchase these games. Because again, there's so much great stuff on there that makes it worthwhile. But before I finish, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video about the 3DS Virtual Console. I enjoyed doing this one as well. So part 4 will be about the Wii U Virtual Console. One I'm actually interested in talking about a lot. So I just want to say thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later on. Bye.